Hi, it's Colleen Schmidt from Divination Counseling Service, here to present asteroids in the lunar eclipse. So we're going to focus not just on the planets and trans-Neptunians as usual, we're going to be also focusing on the asteroids. So today, because we're using really good charts, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the angles on what they refer to, or Gary refers to, as a pizza pie chart. I just think of it as the wheel. Then ultimately what we'll do is we'll go into a dial and see what that looks like, and how different it might be. But our concentration will be today very much on the asteroids and what they have to tell us about this particular eclipse. So before I begin looking at charts, let's talk about the fact that this eclipse is going to be occurring on October 14th, 2023. It will occur at 1:54:55 p.m. So it's in the afternoon. And this one's called the Ring of Fire because of the kind of eclipse it is, because it's a total coverage. The moon is going to totally come in front of the sun. So even as I say this, and I'm going to be doing possibly even the lunar eclipse, but definitely the solar eclipse, the ones to look forward to are the ones that happen in about 6 months from now in the spring, because that particular eclipse will cross the country. So looking at our eclipses right now might be a very good idea. So before I begin this eclipse work, please, let's talk about, first of all, what does an eclipse mean? How long is it active? When will I feel it? All of that. Okay, first of all, I'm doing this video on October 10. And we're already feeling this eclipse. We've been feeling this eclipse probably since, I'm going to go with July. So there's a lot of stuff that started happening toward the end of the summer in all of our lives. We got to pay attention to that, look at it. Now, the degree points that would be the most effective right now would be, the eclipse itself is at 21 degrees of Libra, 7, some people say 6 seconds, 7, or 6 minutes or 7 minutes. So it's right in there. I got 7 minutes. That means that if you have anything in an air sign at approximately 21 degrees, and you want to be tight with an eclipse, you want to be tight, you want to try to get within a degree, and that's where you'll see the most effect. Now, it's not to say that if you're a degree off of that, you wouldn't still have some effect of it. I just think that the way we get nailed is when we're within that degree of orb. And then you could begin to understand what's been transpiring since that time period and how has that affected you. Because an eclipse lasts for months. So 3 months prior, about 12 weeks, Martha Lang Westcott, my teacher, would point out. And even though it's going to be over technically on the 14th, that's like the day of the hit, some residual energy can still be felt for some weeks. Depending on how this lunar eclipse affected your lunar return, or a solar eclipse affected your lunar return, can also be aha moments or solar return. I had a client come in for some work yesterday, and her birthday happens to fall very close to this eclipse. And you know, that means that she's affected for the whole year. So it really does depend on what is being affected in your chart, your life. If you're 21 degrees of air, that means Gemini, Aquarius, Libra, you're in a trine. But you know, the people that are really going to feel it are the people that are Libra, 21 degrees, Aries, 21 degrees. And then you would have the rest of them, Cancer and Capricorn, at 21 degrees. They might really feel it for the simple reason that they create the squares and the oppositions. And in astrology, squares create sometimes the most energy, or the most fight, as I like to say. A lot of fortitude involved in a square. So with that said, I'm going to first pull up from Solar Fire the actual wheel that we're going to start. We're going to start right there with the wheel. So let's have a look. So here we have the pizza pie chart, and it's set for Washington, D.C. And a couple of things to make note of. The house that the sun and moon are falling in, because again, this is a new moon, it is a solar eclipse, is the ninth house. And the ninth house is about change. And it's also can be related to politics, ironically. And boy, are we in trouble there. So I did want to point out that it was a ninth house issue, and that oftentimes, and also just look at this. I mean, Mercury's there, Palace, which is politics, and the South Node is coming towards Zeus, and that's like oppression, maybe because of explosions or disasters, or in the case of this country, it could be those wars that are going on around us. And it's interesting that Apollon, which is the asteroid of business, but it's also the asteroid of many, is falling on the midheaven, and abundance or abundantia is there. And it's interesting that there's no longer one conflict going on in the world, but now there are two very important conflicts going on in the world. So more than one. And it's an abundance of. And Hopi is about territorial issues. And the irony is, in both situations, it's regarding territories. So because of the boundaries. So I wanted to look at that. I wanted to look at that as it's coming into that midheaven. It's at a high point there in the charts, at the higher levels of the chart. Now, the other thing that's kind of interesting in all of this is that if we look at the fourth house, which is your roots, your home, the family itself, Jupiter's there for expansion. But I also like this, Hephaestus. It's actually talking about partnerships with people who are like odd couples. They're different. And the interesting thing about this is that Israel is a partner of this country, but lately Netanyahu has not been behaving in a way that's very democratic. And I think that's an issue. Well, it's an issue for a lot of people. I mean, not saying that what Hamas did was good, it wasn't, but it was provoked. And I think that, when you start really pinning people in like Israel's been doing to Palestine, and not really giving them any kudos for who they are as a group of people, it's almost like as if to say that, I like the way somebody said, yeah, it's like, one of our states was pinned down and nobody was able to move from it, and they had to stay there, and how would they react, right? That's just an interesting question. So I also liked, okay, down here in the third, we have problem solving, node. Okay, so the node is kind of leaving that problem solving, but I think that there hopefully is enough of a connection that, somehow with all of the other people in the world coming together, that they can deal with this. The other thing that's very disconcerting about this chart is that Kronos and Hades are falling right on the descendant angle. And Kronos Hades is bad leaders. It's thugs, it's criminals, kingpins. But it really is about criminal actions, and it's about how those criminal actions or criminal activities are done by those in high places. And it's ongoing with that Astrea there. Astrea, before you even get to Hades, it's like this destruction is ongoing. This criming, if you will, is ongoing. Now, for the next 7 years, we're going to see a lot of activity with these two players. God knows there's been a lot of criming. God knows that because of the lack of oversight and the lack of transparency, not just with our country, but with all governments, I think we're going to be hearing a lot about criminal elements in higher places. Now, I don't want to be all poo-pooed here because there is some good news. When Kronos and Hades come together, it's also medical breakthroughs because Hades is the study of disease and Kronos, of course, is the doctors. So there will be some, so I definitely want to say that that's a really good picture to have. That's, again, it's a bad picture, but there's a good concept here with Hades and Kronos. So not everything in astrology, no aspect is all bad, nothing is all good. Too much of anything can be bad. Too little of anything can be bad. Too much can be bad. So when it comes to astrology, one of the things I learned early on is that we try to stay away from the words like good and bad. Now, here's something else that's really interesting, and I would love to have, and I might do this actually, I might talk this over with some other astrologers to get their opinion on this. This is Aragon, and Aragon is running very closely with Saturn. And you say, well, what does that, and they're both retro. And let me just say this, that Aragon is the asteroid of self-destruction and self-destructive actions. So it's when people commit suicide. Now what's interesting is Saturn is there. Could it be that some destructive actions literally lead to the end of something? Could it be that that self-destructive actions are being limited? Ironically, it falls in the United States in the second house, which is the house of money. Okay? It's almost as though, they keep talking about that money that belongs to Iran. I wonder if they're going to give it to them because of the self-destruction actions. It's very self-destructive right now, what's going on there. I mean, they're committing war crimes right on camera. I think that's something about a civilized society. There really is a such thing as war crimes. And Saturn is sitting there, and we know that Saturn is a task maker. It restricts things. It causes separations. And I think that their self-destruction is the kidnapping. I think they could get a lot more sympathy in the world. They really have been going through a lot, but they shouldn't have done it this way. I think they would have gotten a lot more sympathy. So those are the first things I wanted to highlight in this chart. And by the way, when they said that this probably was being formulated for months, remember, this eclipse has been coming on for months. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to go through each of the angles, okay? And I'm actually going to start with the ascendant, and I'm going to start with what we can see. Now, ironically, you would only pick up 10 on either side. So if we're at 1346, 3 degrees would be where we'd start. We don't have anything there. So at 4 degrees, we have Westphalia and we have Cupido, and it is about the health of families. It's like that's a health asteroid. It is about health and well-being, and it is about the health and well-being of families in the 12th. Hidden families, okay? They're hidden. So that hidden concept, the 12th house, 12th house is also prisons. So these people are being held against their will, almost like they are imprisoned. I do have to tell you the good news is Circe is there. Let's look at, Circe looks like this, and it's at 6 degrees. That's help in the 11th hour. So I'm crossing my fingers that it will be a benefit. The other thing that makes me optimistic in this chart is Panacea is still considered part of the IC. And Panacea is also solving problems. So we're solving problems by getting help in the 11th hour to these families in isolations, and to get them the help they need, the medical help they need. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And also, it's very ongoing. It won't solve anything. I think that this will be ongoing. I don't know how much it'll make it into 24. I'd really have to look at all the other charts. There are astrologers working on just that. They're actually working on just this siege, and how long and how bad and all of that. At this time, I haven't been able to read all the work. I haven't been able to look at all the charts. There's a bit of work out there right now, which is great, because when anything happens to the world, astrologers are generally on it, political or otherwise, as in this case. So I want to include it with these. So I'm going to stay here for a moment. And I want to include Aurora, because all of this happened in the very early morning. And Aurora's early morning, and it's scattered energy. It scattered a lot of energy in the sunrise. Circe, as I said, is there. Ballstrom and Blarney are working together, and Ballstrom is incessant talking, but Blarney is lies. Lies are coming out huge on this particular chart. Okay, this is literally only one of 2 asteroids that are going to fall there for the ascendant. So remember what I told you, repeatable themes. That's the first thing that we're really looking for. And we'll look at Neptune later, okay? Because if you've got so much lying going on, and you've got Hades and Kronos on the descendant, maybe you should be looking for deception with Neptune. The other thing that's really interesting is Blarney and Ballstrom are running with House. We're having a problem with a house. The house. And isn't that interesting? And it's on the ascendant, which is our problem, DC. And it's running with prior, because of prior politics, policies, promises, a prior president, a prior Hades Kronos, because boy, he fits that. He is actually a Hades Kronos. He is a Hades Kronos in his chart. He is Hades Kronos equals Sun. He is the kingpin. So anyone who doubts that he's liable for any of these criminal actions, please don't. Please get your astrology out. Do his chart, you'll see. So then we also have Ditto. And Ditto makes me think that there is a repeatable concepts that are happening, okay, especially in the house, and that is true. So the garbage, it gets pretty thick. It's interesting because conscience, we need to be more conscious of what's going on. All of us as Americans, particularly what's going on in the house. And as I said, Pinocchio, there's our second lying asteroid. Laverna for theft. Okay, so these are all playing on that ascendant. They're all in what we would like to refer to the area of tools. These are our tools to get through. Now, I do know that the house is using the idea of theft with money to try to garner more support. So, you're going to look for that too. So if I'm doing the ascendant, let's go to the descendant, okay? So I'll start with what you can see. What's there? All right. So we can start with Vesta, okay? So there's a goal. The people we're dealing with are very goal-oriented. Bear that in mind for whoever is voting for those house people. There's a goal. All right, that's Vesta. Also, it talks about things that are happening at a distance. 2 wars. So there, it's really, and how they're ongoing, Australia. They are in aspect by Uranian standards because they're less than 2.5 degrees apart. So, and some people go wider, and you're welcome to do that, but in this case, you hardly have to do it. They are in aspect. So, ironically, this chaos is not there, but it all derives from chaos. So we have this ongoing stuff going on at a distance, these ongoing goals. And I do hate to say this, but I do think that there are people in the House that want to bring our country down. That's their goal. Hate Chronos, we're dealing with corruption and criming at the highest of levels. And you can't really you can use Chronos, as I said, but you can't use Sphinx, where we would be questioning all that. Can't use it. It's out of the range. So let's talk about what is in range. Okay, so we're looking at computers, social media in particular, as an issue with Berners-Lee. I do see win there, and that we all know with my work that I've been doing, as there is a win. For somebody, there's going to be a win. That's why I don't think one of these is going to last very long. So I don't know that this Israel thing will go into the new year, because I don't know that it will last that long. I know it's ongoing, but I'm not sure about it. But I do see a win. Lima talks about being nice. And that's the thing Israel wasn't. Nice. Okay? So Lima is nice, and it's what it's nicest to is the subservient, the people that are at the bottom. You have to be nice to them. They're at the bottom. So it's coming also with Vesta. So, that's kind of strange. Escapulus is there. Now remember, we also have Westphalia there at the ascendant. So Escapulus is also a health asteroid. There's a lot of people wounded. Israel took down a hospital. Again, was that smart? That's not Lima. So here we go again with, if you do really bad things to people, they're going to retaliate. I just don't know why we're still not there yet to understand that concept. And I think another real defining factor is you keep putting women down. Wait till you see what happens in the next election, because you don't put people down. You don't take away their rights. If you do, they rebel. Odysseus refers to the fact that, and this is interesting, Odysseus is about the foreigners, and the photographer is running with that. And they're not really an aspect. They're about 4 degrees apart. Well, 3 degrees apart, but pretty close. And so you get these foreigners taking pictures. We need to see this, because I know that one of the women they showed on camera was severely raped. And why is it that they go right for the women? Here we go again. The weakest, right? Let's go for the women. Bam! I mean, it's just so ridiculous. But in any case, there are pictures now. And Lie is there. And this is funny. Smiley is there. And when I was reading some of these other asteroids, even with related to our House of Representatives, realize, do not trust the smiling face. They're lying. Especially during this eclipse. Barrett, which is a psychic. Please use your intuition, people, particularly when you're dealing with lies. And I got to be honest with you, that includes the media, because they're not honest. Although I did see a show recently where they were very honest, and I was quite shocked. Quite shocked. People go out there and seek the truth. Use your intuition if that's all you have, because it'll work. So the other thing is, listen to the psychics. Listen to the psychics. I think they're getting good messaging with them being on an angle like that. So the other thing I want to go to is then the midheaven, okay? Midheaven is what the world sees. It's the career, the future, the direction. I also like to say that that's where the God seeds dribble in. That's where it pulls in the seeds from the universe. Now, some people will call it God. Some people will call it the source. Some people will, but the Godhead, the God seeds. So let's look at those. Again, we can go 10 degrees. But we really don't have anything after Lilith at 26 degrees, which is that triangulation, rejection, selection. We're having that right now in this country because we can see the plight of Palestine. We understand what they have been going through. No, Hamas did not act in a very good way, probably thanks to Iran and possibly Russia. But let's face it, there's a lot of sympathy in this country for those people, as there should be. Netanyahu has really overstepped in many ways. So now, and he's been called out by a lot of our Congress people too. So here we go with the House again, because that seems to be where all the activity is. So as we look at this, we can start with the Scorpio. And the very first one that we see is Ganymede, which is to be of service. Yes, that is the United States' role in both of these wars. They're proxy wars for the United States, but it's about us serving, particularly those that are, again, on the bottom, or that are innocent in all of this. You should never go after the innocents. Apparently, somebody never watched Game of Thrones. But anyway, so with that, right next to it is doo-doo. So it's a lot of crap. As a matter of fact, it's an abundance of crap. Lies, 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 lies. We can't even trust the media. We can't trust anybody. Our own intuition. Okay. So there's abundance of lies. Mars is there, and this whole eclipse is about wars, whether it's the one in Ukraine that the Republicans, the MAGA Republicans, decided they're going to pull the plug on, or is it the new one? But it's all about war. 1 degree of Scorpio. There's Mars. War. It's anger. People are angry. There's an abundance of anger. There's an abundance of crap that we've been dealing with because of bad leaders. People stand up. That's called democracy. So then, up here, remember, I already talked about territorial stuff. There we have our Hopi. Okay? And with Hopi is Ceres, the mother, taking care of ourselves, other people. And along up there with Ceres is Demeter. So food. And food is going to be where we're going to have to help. There won't be food. Maybe in the Ukraine, but there won't be in Israel. Not in Palestine. And I don't think that the United States is going to be all that thrilled about starving out a whole nationality of people. So it's something that we should be looking at. And that's as far as we can go on here. Oh, Poseidon in the Aries point by 11 minutes, out by 11 minutes. There's your media. There's the news. There's the propaganda, which seems to be much more appropriate these days than even news, because a lot of times what we're hearing is propaganda. So it's very sad, unfortunately, but true. So, in terms of the midheaven, let's see what else is there. Oh, Williams for humiliation. Yes, the United States should be humiliated. Our politics right now is in crumbles. It's a sham. The next asteroid represents a twig. Yeah, because it's because of a twig that all the wheels of the spoke are being affected. A twig. Needless to say, coming out of Chronos Haze. Bad leaders. So see how they all go together? I mean, when you're reading like this, the conversation becomes everything that's at the angles and how they interact and relate to one another. They create their own conversations. Delphi, once again, is about psychics, oracles, reading the room in a whole other way. Iyengar is talking about our need to be more structured, especially with regard to serving others. Yeah, this one's going to require some real structure. It talks about the West. Isn't it interesting? The West Bank talks about the West. It's all also Western against Eastern philosophies often. But how about the fact that to the West, we are a willing victim? No, that's just our role. That's what I feel. But in any case, yep, Patsy is the willing victim. So you have to be careful of that. The, I see, here it is. Okay, so now we're down here, and you can see there's not a lot here. Jupiter has Vestas, which I already spoke about. They're all there, but nothing, and Panacea just made it in, okay, as it starts at 27 degrees of Aries. So Panacea made it in, but Dolaro is running with Panacea. So money is going to be part of what helps solve the problem, and he's going to require some money. It's going to require a lot of money. Duke is there. So you have Dolaro and Duke. Think about all of the gambling asteroids, right? So it's a real gamble. Duke and Dolaro. Dolaro tells you there's money involved. Duke tells you there's a lot of money. And that's what creates opportunity for us to just do it, Nike. So opportunity is running pretty, I mean, they're coming in on the same signs. Everything's retrograde, so it's not going to act in its normal direct way. All of this. I did talk about Hephaestus. That's like partners that are just, like, why would they be partners? You know, they don't have anything in common. And it's how these partners are inciting one another. Valentine, they're causing this excitement. And Perkin is that people are also pretending to be something that they are not. And that is all down here. Okay, so it's pretty interesting. There's Valentine. So it's a very interesting lineup. The conversation runs very easily from one angle to another angle to another angle to another angle. So it works really beautifully well here. I'm going to pull up a chart just to look at Neptune, and we're going to look at Neptune in a 360 degree dial. So we'd actually use a different program for this. Just give you a taste of it. I'm going to do some Nova cartwheel on this one. Okay, so this is a different, I did go to the midheaven. You can see that the midheaven, and I wanted to see what came up with the midheaven, and if there was anything, to add. I know that Saturn, remember Saturn played an unusual role even in the chart. Saturn could be affected. The ascendant and Saturn. So I'm just looking at where the dots fall and if there's anything that's affected. Now, what we really want to look at on here, and the reason why I did this, was Neptune. So here's our illusions, disillusions, and see if I can do this. Yeah, this is our deceptions and general losses, and let's do this. That's what I thought. So we would take, and this is just a little bit of another kind of astrology that I do, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the midheaven, add it to the ascendant, and then we have to take off, let's hope I do it right, we have to take that off, we minus that, and it comes to a vertexual ascendant. Yeah, so which means that it's the general public that's not getting the truth. Look at this about families and Pluto transformations. I mean, yeah, there are some deceptions here. Just looking to see if anything else is getting hit. Look at this. Hates Chrono. Uranus. Sudden thing. See, I don't think everything's being told to us. And I think that's going to play a role. It's going to be a factor. You've got Adamitas to that midheaven. I mean, I don't think we realize how stuck we are. We will. We're really stuck. Also, this is an indication that the weather is going to turn very, very cold. And I believe that is true. Some of the pictures that we're looking at, connections are hindered. Yeah, they're being taken. So just wanted to show that. That's another way of doing this astrology and really looking. Now I can actually stay here and just look at Neptune on the dial and see if I can see anything. Here's Neptune. And I apologize for that. And of course, it's something I don't even want and don't need, and you know how that goes. Something that happens all the time. So, yeah. Anyway, so we're going to turn that off. How about that? Okay. So here we have Neptune, and I love this. Okay, what do we have with Neptune? Remember I said look to Neptune for deceptions. Look at this. Mercury equals Adamitas. What is not being said? What are we not being told? Okay, because Adamitas is that block. It's the obstacles. It's the, what are we not being told? Mercury is your news. So I knew we'd get something interesting out of this. So let's move on. Okay, so we're going to go back to our normal dial here. And one of the things that, and I do this with the other program as well, because I have a lot of asteroids on my my outer ring here. But unfortunately, the chart does not hold all of the asteroids I work with. And it never will. I work with so many more than we see. But here we have it. Here's our Adamitas, and Mercury, I believe, is right there. That's the node. Oh, it's also the node. That's interesting. That's no connections. So I didn't realize the node was right there along with all of this. That's interesting. That's right, because Mercury is actually with Chiron. So it's an alternative. So you don't see it on this one. Isn't that interesting? It's the setup. It's the way it's set up. They're different. So that's really interesting because we clearly got it in the last one, but we did not. This one, it's not far away, but it's not a direct as it would have been. This is what I was looking at right here, which is Venus, which also makes, that's where we pick up that the ongoing Astrea Mars is with Venus, okay? I thought Venus also made a little connection here to the node. I think it's in the Aries. Yeah. All right, so here we go. Venus itself is, when you go to the cardinal point, the Aries point, then you have a Venus node. Now, on a mundane level, on a very subtle level, that's really good because our node Venus is our friends. It's the people we're really intimate with. And that bodes well in this chart. Yeah, I didn't want to see that Adamitas with the node. That would have been terrible. But Adamitas to Venus, very good. You know, Selena, and I know they say that the math is not always good on some of these things, but I've got to be honest with you. Selena looks great in this chart, which is like new talents, new abilities. We got a Kronos Apollon on it. We've got it hits the ascendant and the IC. So I think that, you know, that now there is a lot of complications because of it, and the complications are coming in because of politics, and because some people who should be speaking out are not. Okay, and we want to look at war. You always go to Mars, and look at how it's affecting, mothers' health, the population. It's just bad. It does point to victory. So I think we will be instrumental in helping find victory and shutting down. But isn't the complicated? This is EOS. To make things complicated, let's scatter the energy. The House is guilty of that just as much as the Hamas is. So I think that's also very interesting. So the very last thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to look at the axis of the sun and moon. Look how close Venus is. So money's going to be an issue, but so are our relationships, particularly with our friends, with the people that we're closest to. But I also have to tell you, with the sun there with Shiva, there's a lot of destruction, a lot of days of destruction, and it's also withdrawing. So that's also in there. It kind of, the chart itself lends itself to, and we'll look at this, it lends itself, believe it or not, to even natural disasters that are possible. Jupiter, Saturn talks a lot about working hard, working. It's between Vesta and ongoing, working, ongoing. I just worry. I hope we're going to be okay for the remainder of the year with all these storms and all this rain, and then there's droughts, and so we have a lot of stuff going on that's in addition to the proxy wars. So okay, so our axis, we have these numbers, would be 2107 cardinal. Let's go back. That's right here. Well, 2106, don't matter. And then it equals 606 or 607 mutable. It also equals 2837, because you got to go 22 and a half. 2837, so it's about here. Justice is not far away. Okay, it's Medusa. It's strong justice. Strong justice, Medusa. Okay, so strong justice is coming. And then 1337 of fix, so right about in here. Again, I'm sorry, 1, 2, 3. Literally right outside of Jupiter. With food. Demeter. Okay. So that's good. That's good. So let's look at some of the asteroids in that axis. Okay, we already talked about Shiva. We have, this is death here, by the way, but it's a little bit out of the axis. So I'm hoping that there isn't much more death. We have to pray for that. So this, I included Bano. Everything I'm talking about is under a degree. Okay, and Bano is relationships, marriages, partnerships, okay? Especially the marriage kind of partnership, where people are working together towards something. Rosetta is the truth that sets us free. I just hope we get it. Shiva, here it is what we talked about, withdrawing, letting it, withdraw. So that then brings us down to the next area of this, which is that 1337 right in here. And at this point, we have, from the fixed, we have Hephaestus, which we already spoke about, and it is those odd couples, partners, odd partners, people with, that doesn't seem like they should be together. Dolores falls over here, and Dolores is an asteroid that tends to make things worse, so it'd be like illnesses, and it is very possible that illnesses could be derived from what's coming or going on right now, that there could be something about that. If we go to the 28 up here, so we're way up here now, right up in here, the Tisphany, which is, I already talked about, is justice, is running with Medusa. And so it's strong justice. When we go back around, we have that psychic intuition, Barrett. So Barrett is also involved, not just on an angle, but it's involved, same thing with Hephaestus. These are asteroids that are really going to pop and jump in terms of what they're meaning, because they not only fell in the angle, but they fell within the sun axis. So if I go to that fixed 1337, we have Savo. So saving something, or maybe that's what this is all about, saving those families, and from being cut. And it does talk about getting them health care. Hippocrates is there. But also how it's going to be very difficult because Lax is running between Hippocrates and Polaris. So two health asteroids. It's going to be very, very difficult to get these people the medical attention that they need. That brings us, well, to the, again, staying with that 1337 fixed, we also have risk and Demeter. So it's risk for food. There'll be some risks taken to feed these people. Okay. Truth. Isn't it funny that Truth and Rosetta are all showing up in the sun axis? When we get to the angles of the chart, it was nothing but lies. So I thought that was interesting. Truth, a scapula, so truth about a medical issue. Realize that it's in early Sag, so that's around that 6-degree point in Sag. That this could be for even you on a personal level. This could be anyone where there could be some truth found out about a medical issue, which I think is good for, it bodes well regardless. Delbrook, again, reminds people of the, I want to say, the idea of using a scapegoat, especially when you're losing or lost. I think they're using Kevin McCarthy as a scapegoat in the House myself. I'm not saying he's trustworthy. I definitely don't agree with his politics. But I think he's a scapegoat. It also, again, this is going back to even those things that affected the ascendant, conscious, to be conscious, to be conscientious is going to be very important due to ditto, things that have happened before, repeating themselves, or things happening over and over again. Proserpina is about going it alone, a journey that we have to do on our own. And Baracisis is the, when you have a Baracisis, it's like you think you need to have something in order to make things work, but that's not true, you don't. And it's for all of us. It's like a kind of a rude awakening on what is it, the lies that we tell ourselves? What about the lies we tell ourselves? And how is that lie that we tell ourselves affiliated with the journeys that we can only do on our own? So that gives you something to think about. And with that said, I'm just going to pull up just really briefly, because again, the video is getting a little long, the reports. So in here, all I want to do is look at the aspect list. And you see things like the moon is contraparallel to Venus. The sun and the moon are in parallel. They're conjunct. They're conjunct. So they're conjunct. Everywhere conjunctions. There's an inconjunct to the moon as well as a contraparallel. So there may be a lot of compromise within our friendships, which is fine. Also, a lot of the moon is conjuncting Zeus, so there's a lot of excitement. The people are excited. This is when I would say limit the amount of news you're watching. The moon is conjunct. The people are oppressed right now. It doesn't matter where you live, who you are. The people, the moon is conjuncting the south node. I think that the sun is also squaring Pluto. And what that means is there's a lot of transformations taking over in the world. Remember that the placement of the sun and moon was in the house of change. With the square to Pluto, I think that there is an ongoing struggle to work with new, different, and so it is about the changes. So nothing else I really wanted to talk about here. It is an interesting chart. I think it's an important eclipse. I think due to the rise, the Mars right on that midheaven, I think that that says it all. That, you know, this is really about war. And even when it wasn't about the Israeli war, it was about the Ukrainian war. So that has a lot to do with it. I think that a lot is changing. I think it's not just the changing of the people with that inconjunct, the moon, the oppression to the moon, the south node. But look at Pallas is also running the midpoint of Pallas, and the Pluto tells me that as it equals the sun and moon, that part of this is also about transformations with our own political systems. So with that said, as always, I want to wish you only good readings until we meet again. And thank you for watching the video.